that Planned Parenthood ad shot up like crazy.
And it did?
Yeah, everybody's talking about it. But if you Google it right now, if you YouTube it right now, we're the #1 on it.
Oh, really? That's crazy.
Just gotta jump on those things as soon as possibly can. I gotta get off Safari.
Yeah, I think you should add some background music to yours.
To what? This?
Yeah, Middle America things.
You mean the 5-minute clips or the discussion portion?
Like the clips that are like 10, 15 minutes long.
They all have music on them. What are you talking about?
They have music on?
The only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Unless you're black. Let's talk about it. Middle America, a minute story.
I mean, like some background music.
Yeah?
I'm Dan. Welcome to Middle America, y'all. Well,
Oh,
straight from the No Good Deed Goes Unpunished files, we have the story of Jamel Roberson. 26 years old, black male shot by the cops in the streets and killed. About to enter into the prime of his life. What crime did he commit, you say? Good question, friend. It appears that folk were at a bar and several drunk men were asked to leave the bar. Well, they did, and at least one person returns and opens fire in this bar, so starts shooting. Roberson chases down this individual and has him on the ground with his gun on his back, like, do not move. So he stopped the active shooter situation and then apprehended the shooter and made it so that the shooter couldn't go anywhere until the cops arrived. And this is the stuff of legends. Well, the officer responding to the scene then fired at Rosen. Witnesses state, we all yelled, he's security, and without giving any thought, they shot him. You know, I was...
Hey, can you take that plug out there? You see that it's connected to a charger? Just unplug it and plug it in this thing right here.
I don't know what you're talking about.
See that plug on? You're stepping on it right now.
Yeah.
Unplug the charger part, the wire. Be careful though. And then plug it into the computer here. See that USB link?
I got this.
The other one. Okay, yep. So just plug it into one of those USBs on the back.
Okay.
Sarah, can you hear me? Type 22 if you can hear me. Sarah Palmer. Got it? It's in the computer?
Yeah.
Sweet. Sweet. All right. Well, Sarah, welcome. You're the first contestant. Long time no chat. I was gonna fireside like a couple days in a row, and then football was on, and I've been missing time with my son, so I went to watch the game. Looks like this is gonna be a pretty short fireside. These are pretty early. This is pretty early for a fireside. Dun, 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 dun. All right, where is he? Come join us. Connor, what's up? I love the. Who's your team, Sarah? Who's your team? I'm with the New England Patriots because I love America. Who's your favorite team? Eagles. Boo. What a disaster that Super Bowl was. What a disaster that Super Bowl was. Yuck. Let me do one more editing thing here, and then I'll have the undivided attention of the room. Oh, actually, one more thing. I'm going to do that on Patreon. All right. That was an amazing Super Bowl. No, it wasn't. It was a terrible Super Bowl. It should have never happened the way that it did. Yo, Apan, you're finally here. Eric, what's going on, Eric? Rachel Hoover, Absorum. One last check. No notifications. Thanks, YouTube. What's up, Matthew? Okay, are you logged in at... Oh, it doesn't matter what you're logged in on. You're subscribed to Middle America. Are you subscribed to Middle America? What's up, Ron? SF Jarhead, you should call me up and explain to me what you were talking about. You don't want all black men treated the same, but yet you equate all LE. You can't compare these incidents if it wasn't the same people involved. What do you mean I equate all LE? You mean law enforcement? Is it the law enforcement that I said in the first video where I said that the majority of them are people who are willing to give their lives for their community? Or is it the law enforcement where I said 2 of my brothers were in law enforcement? Maybe you were being emotional, SF Jarhead. Hey, a wild sarcast appears. Yeah, SF Jarhead, you should talk to me. Let's talk about the police shooting if you want. M Death Fan is here. Yes, Appan, you finally found a live one. I think we're going to start talking around I don't know, 40 people. 40 people come in, then we'll start calling in. Jarhead, get ready. You'll be up first. You Yanks have a weird view of socialism. Probably. Damon Sage in the house. Just coming out from confession. Happy to see this live. God is good, baby. Good. I hope your soul feels cleansed now. And I mean that, literally. Vin, capitalist swine is here, you immorality socialist. Okay. Well, you can always call in and school me on the error of my ways. Before the series starts, I love your pick with the cross and prayer beads. Loved it. Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty artsy. I was in an artsy mood. Well, Joseph, look, if you genuinely believe that socialism is immoral and I'm supporting socialism, then you're not saying anything against me as a human to say that that I'm immoral. I mean, it's just logic, right? So I'm not mad at you for that. I'm not sure that I'm just not sure that socialism is completely immoral, and I'm not convinced that capitalism is a morally pristine system. Let me put it that way. Finally, yes, Fred, are you going to call in, Mr. Fred, the local villager? What's going on, Hex? Did the cop who fired the shots make any statement so far? No, Sarcast. Usually what happens when the police kill us is they're quiet, they go on administrative leave, and then the police union goes and does all the statements. What's going on, Mike? So it's it's a matter of policy. Our capitalist country runs by socialist programs some don't understand. Yeah, I'm probably a mixture of capitalism and socialism. I'll say it this way. I'm socialist when it comes to healthcare. I'm socialist when it comes to healthcare. What happened? I work third shift and don't normally hear much news. Well, what happened is Jamil Roberson, I believe his name was a black security guard. There's an active shooter situation. He resolved the issue and then chased down the assailant and then had the assailant at gunpoint. People called the police. When the police arrived, everybody in the crowd was saying, hey, that guy, the guy on top of the other guy he's a security guard. He's the hero. And the cops jumped out of the car and promptly shot and killed him. So there's that. We can also talk about the Planned Parenthood ad that's blowing up. I just saw Ben Shapiro's group just did a little 7-minute spoof on it. That Planned Parenthood ad, which was so terrible that people were accusing me of getting it from a right-wing source. That's how bad it was. So there's that. What's up, Gen G? Zonia in the house? When the police kill us, that's what I'm referring to. Hold the individuals responsible. What do you mean, hold the individuals responsible? That's what happens. Hey, Jarhead, you don't get to have it both ways, my guy. There's a reason that you wear a uniform, right? Uniform. There's a reason for that. And the reason for that is that you understand that you're part of a collective. This whole individualist thing in America is amazing to me. It's a process called de-individuation. Okay? You do not get to claim individualism when you're part of a body that purposefully wears a uniform in a given community. Good night. I can say when the police kill us because it's an institution. Does that mean that all police officers are murderous bastards? No, it does not mean that. But it does mean that some of them are, and institutionally we have a problem. Now, if you'd like to call up, I'd be glad to have the conversation with you, brother. But come on, man. Let's sing like, everybody in Germany in the 30s and 40s wasn't a Nazi. I know that. Everybody flying under the Nazi flag weren't Nazis. I know that. The problem is you're part of the military. So you get lumped in collectively. That's how it works. Good Lord. Well, is SF is that Elio's mic? Don't complain with the police profile. Well, the difference is I didn't join up to be part of a collective, and I don't wear a uniform. You see the difference? When you become a police officer, you're voluntarily becoming part of a collective. You're wearing a uniform. Call me up and talk to me about what the purpose of a uniform is. There's a reason that when a person joins tier 1 groups like DevGru or CAG, that they no longer wear uniforms when they go out. You know why? Because they're operating individually. That way the U.S. can distance themselves if they get caught or do something dumb overseas. Call me and talk to me. Good Lord. We're at 47. Okay. SF Jarhead and Fred the Local Villager. Both of you disagree with me. Please call me up. Let's have a conversation. Vin and Sorry. Go to was it Skype? Vin and Sorry. We'll have a conversation. Birdman, we've been promoting the channel pretty much every day on the thing. We usually do it like in the first 30, 40 seconds. And then we add the link and all that jazz. But what other ways can we promote it? Because right now, Sorry's beating me in subscribers. I only have 555. She's got like close to 1,000. She's almost doubling me. Well, MDef fan, you can call me too. I'm very well aware that Chicago's a war zone. I'm very well aware. Then if you'd put on some makeup tutorials, that might change. That's funny. Yes, I agree. I'm appreciative. 555 is pretty ridiculous for a week and a half in. For sure. Fred, there's always some reason you can't call in and talk. You ever notice that? I'm not mad at you. I'm just saying. It's very strange. Americans are weird. We say we're individualists and hate collectivism, yet we also value civic virtue and have a strong nationalist tradition, collective phenomenons. Right. If you want to be a radical individualist, then stop with the 4th of July stuff. Because you didn't do anything in the 4th of July. Or are you saying that your forefathers did something and you're connected to them, which then makes you a collectivist? Bricktown. There are so many things I want to yell at Vin about, even though he's the opposite of me. Well, call in and yell, sir. That's what we're here for. What's up, Jay? It's going good. You know, maintaining. Is a reaction to theocracy coming soon? Yes. Absolutely. Hollyhawks in the house. America needs socialism. Well, you're not going to argue. I'm not going to argue with you about that, brother, especially when it comes to healthcare. I will call when I get back. What do you mean Sorry's channel speaks to all of us? Look, I would never watch Sorry's channel. Like I can't really relate to a mom with a bunch of little kids. Can't relate to that. I've never watched that channel. All right, Jen. Well, Eric, if you don't believe that America needs socialism, call up and let's talk about it. Is it Mr. Gorsuch in the house again? What's going on, Mr. Gorsuch? I'll never pronounce your name properly, ever. Small government, but not for mass imprisonment. Protect gun rights because of fear of tyranny. Now let's build that wall more impenetrable than North Korea. I think you're joking. Should I call in? I think I agree with you on all these topics. Well, Zonia, I think you're good. Well, you probably disagree with me about Planned Parenthood, but the stuff that I've talked about before, I'm sure we agree on. And since none of my right-leaning friends want to have a conversation, I guess you're just going to have to call in. I think it's Shock. I'm subscribed to your channel. I am not subscribed to Story's channel, even though she's prettier than you. Good, Ron. Yes, we have to unite. Of course, John, you can be an individualist while still being a patriot. You can also be inconsistent. It's just inconsistent, that's all. I'm not mad at you for it, but it's just inconsistent. The immorality of socialism is forcefully taking other services to give it to others. Yeah, I think that's a compelling point. The problem is, the question needs to be asked, is it moral to monetize life-saving procedures or things that are conducive at the minimum level to furthering human life? That's a question. So like, if I found a way to harness all the water on the planet, would it be moral for me to monetize that? Zonia.
You know, Gersh webpage, just in case you need it.
I do need it, actually. All right, so talk to me. What do you want to talk to me about?
Oh, so I figured I could give you a recap on the Gershok show at the very least.
Yes, we need a download of the Gershok show, seeing as how we've got the Gershok guy in here. Go.
Yeah. See, and really with their audience and the audience.
Yeah.
Really good music, great. I'd only heard the one. I guess I hear a lot more there.
Sonia, you're cutting in and out.
We've been losing page for some reason.
Hold on. Zonia, check your text, okay?
All right.
Zonia of the village. Give me a second, guys. We got to get Zonia back on the line. She'll be back. All right, crazy John. What's with the connection? I know you were just about to have the greatest review of all time in your life, Gersach, and then this happens. Who's on the line?
Zonia here.
Okay, Zonia.
Yeah, so what did you last hear?
Okay, just start from the beginning. We heard nothing.
Alright. The band is great. Great energy. Really knew how to work with the crowd and engage the audience, and that was a lot of fun. Amazing guitar skills and drum skills, bass skills. All the musicians were really stellar. And good music. So it was a great show. Friendly bandmates, too. Like, it was easy to just kind of walk up and talk to people. Nobody, had any kind of attitudes or anything. Everybody was willing to just strike up a conversation and talk.
So X is the lead singer and lead guitarist, right?
Yeah, he's singer and guitars, and Leland does guitars as well. Scotty does bass. And, gosh, now I'm forgetting the drummer. X, you're going to have to forgive me on that one. I met the drummer at the very end of the night, and I was really tired.
What was your favorite song, if you could remember?
Undead Empire, of course.
Yeah. Did they close with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was a really fun experience, too, because everybody got in on the song. and it was a lot of fun. Like the audience was in on the song. It was great.
Daniel Justo Sanchez on drums. Just so you
There
know.
you go.
So was everybody saying Zola Sugar and all that good jazz? Zonia?
Yep, it was a lot of fun.
Good stuff. Good show review. This is like the template for how it's supposed to work. We do a review, we do an interview, and then people go to the show. It can't get much better than that. Can't get much better than that.
It disconnected.
It can get better than that because it got disconnected. All right.
Hey.
So you're back.
Yeah. I think the fires are playing havoc around here. Signal's been terrible since the fires kicked into gear.
That's probably what it is. So Bricktown sent me something about like climate change and these fires because this one has been like the most intense one in a long time, right?
Yeah, it's like the most intense since the 1960s or something.
Yeah. So like, do you buy that? Do you think that climate change has anything to do with what's going on?
Oh yeah, I can easily tell because I'm a big time gardener. And I've been doing that for a very long time. So I've watched as the conditions have changed gradually over the years and become more and more severe. And yeah, we did get a lot of rain last year, but we had so little rain over the past 10 years that all of our forestry was at high risk. And the amount of water that we've lost over the last 10 years, it would take about, I think they were estimating that would take about somewhere around 30 years of consistent rainfall, like normal rainfall, to get back to the point where we were the series of droughts.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. And the fires, not only is this series of fires more severe than since the 1960s, but we've had so much just like constant fires going on over the past few years, where normally California goes through bursts of them during dry seasons, but they don't go back to back over and over again. And last year and the year before, we had these back to back major wildfires that would just cascade through swaths of forestry in California. And if you're not too familiar with California, it's a massive agricultural and forestry state. We've got tons of land, and most of it isn't occupied by people.
Wow.
So it's just sweeping through thousands and thousands of acres constantly.
That's pretty. Okay, so what do you think the solution is?
Well, everybody needs to rein in on all their resource usage. There's a good article that came out by, I think NBC News posted it first, but it was an article that was written by a climate scientist who was saying these are the things that normal people can do to rein in their resource usage and help combat climate change. But I didn't get a chance to finish it. All the statistics.
As you jumped into your SUV.
Yeah, I've always tried to limit the amount of waste that I produce. I reuse things, like for instance, when I go to the grocery store to get produce, I reuse my plastic bags for the produce over and over again. And I've always had reusable regular bags for, just general shopping. I never used paper bags or plastic bags. I would always bring in these canvas bags and use them. And then whatever plastic bags I use for my wet produce, I just reuse it every time.
Do you want to reorient your top 3 things that you're scared of in the next 10 years? Didn't you put AI as number 1?
No, AI is number 2. Climate change is number 1.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. Alec put Alec put AI above climate change, didn't he?
Yep. Yeah, climate change has been number one for me for a long time, especially since I started having to fight back, like, blight spreading across all my plants and everything that I grow in my garden.
Yep. Okay, so you've seen the last couple Middle America videos, I'm assuming?
Mm-hmm.
Aren't they wonderful?
Yeah.
Okay, so talk about one. Because none of my right-leaning friends want to engage about any of these issues, so go ahead.
All right, which one do we want to go into? You've had a handful. You had a nationalism one, you had the Planned Parenthood one, you had the shooting of the black security guard.
Well, the Planned Parenthood one was hilarious to me because people were telling me that it was a right-wing cabal that pushed out the commercial, which I thought was...
Oh, even I was suggesting that.
Because it was that bad. No, you... I'm gonna send you guys a link to a channel that did it really well, and it was hilarious. Sori and I were up till like 3 or 4 o'clock just rewatching this guy's stuff because it was hilarious the way he did it. But go ahead. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, the Planned Parenthood thing was disturbing. Okay, so you know my belief. My belief is that abortion is killing a living being, but I'm not necessarily opposed to abortion at all times. So I don't draw the line at taking a life necessarily. I draw the line at the conditions of the situation, whether or not it is warranted.
Well, what class of being is the being that we're killing?
It's a human.
All right. So you're conceding that abortion is the willful killing of an innocent human being. Go ahead.
Yep. Okay, so I'm willing to hear out scientists on the subject, of course, and there's a lot of debate on the issue at times. So I'm willing to listen to them and say, hey, tell me what you think of the situation and give me an explanation of why it isn't that.
Well, hold on.
So I'm willing to hear that out.
Are you saying there's debates among embryologists about what we're killing?
Yeah.
Which ones?
Well, it depends on which ones are speaking at the time. There are a lot of strong opinions on the subject.
I can publish an article to you where the embryologist basically said, I don't believe that they're safe until viability. She gave about 17 steps. She gave 17 processes or whatever. And viability was step 14. But she never denied that it was a separate organism. Because that's the question.
Yeah, a zygote is the fusion of the sperm and the seed.
Right.
And it's not a fetus until it has until certain conditions are met. And I don't remember if that's specifically that it can be removed from the womb and incubated and still survive, so it's not wholly dependent on the mother. Or I don't know the specifics of that because I don't know embryologist knowledge.
Were you able to read the Francesca Minerva article?
I have not. No.
Okay.
I would like to see what the scientific consensus is amongst embryologists. That's what I would like to see. I'm a big believer in moving in the direction of scientific consensus because if enough peers see the same data and are able to concur that the results are valid and that it fits within a frame of logic that everybody is speaking the same language on, then that's the direction that science moves in until somebody can prove it otherwise.
And what you're saying is, even if the scientists all have a general consensus that we're killing a human being, you're still okay with it in certain circumstances?
Yeah, if there's no consensus at the time, then if the consensus is out that it's a living being, I would yield on the side that I feel that we need to acknowledge that it's a living being, though I would put the mother's health above all else in those circumstances.
Okay. So what did you think about the ad itself?
Totally tone deaf, and anybody with a handful of brain cells to rub together should understand that it's creepy.
Oh my gosh. So I'm going to read this to you, and I'm going to send you the link if you want. This is from Dr. Maureen Kondik, Associate Professor of Neurobiology and Adjunct Professor of Pediatrics at the University of Utah School of Medicine. She's also Director of Human Embryology Instruction for the Medical School of Human Neuroanatomy for the Dental School. These are smart people like you, Zonia, not me, okay? The conclusion that human life begins at sperm-egg fusion is uncontested, objective, based on the universally accepted scientific method of distinguishing different cell types from each other and on ample scientific evidence. Thousands of independent, peer-reviewed publications. Moreover, it is entirely independent of any specific ethical, moral, political, or religious view of human life or of human embryos. Indeed, this definition does not directly address the central ethical questions surrounding the embryo. What value ought society place on human life at the earliest stages of development? A neutral examination of the evidence merely establishes the onset of a new human life at a scientifically well-defined moment of conception, a conclusion that unequivocally indicates that human embryos from the one-cell stage forward are indeed living individuals of the human species, i.e. human beings. So this lady is saying...
Yeah, they're saying life is not a conception.
No, she's saying the opposite. She's saying it's at conception, and that's undisputed.
Oh, okay. When it cut out there, I thought it was saying that it was undisputed that it's not.
No,
but,
she's saying the opposite.
Yeah,
but what she's saying is...
because the idea is that, the building blocks of what constitute life do exist the moment that the zygote comes into existence, which is the moment that the egg is fertilized. So the conditions are met at that point. Now, neurologically speaking, so from a neuroscience perspective, again, I don't know embryology, but based on what I know from neuroscience, the neurological structure necessary to foster the feedback that you get that creates a subjective experience, or what we know as being conscience, and the ability to feel and react on those feelings, feedback on them, and to register them as more than just, base level programmatic response, does not exist for quite some time. I don't know much about embryology, but I know the way that our neurological structure grows. And I know that from my own studies of neuroscience, as well as I've been through a major spine surgery where I was actually losing the functionality of the upper left half of my body due to spinal damage. And they had performed some surgery they had to cut away a bunch of bone, cut away discs, do a fusion and insert cadaver bone, and, graft in cadaver bone and everything to restore the function of my upper left half of my body. And I obsessed over that knowledge of understanding how it was that our nerves grow throughout our body, and why it was that I was feeling different levels of failure to register, certain feelings and strength and reaction. And as those different, responses started to decay over the time, I was studying up on them, and I was learning how it was that our nerves grow through our body, and how it is that our neurological structure forms over time. And it taught me a lot about how much neurological development it takes in the womb alone just to get to a point where a baby could actually register senses outside of, just the basics of, twitches, right? The ability to actually feel and react to it comes much later on in the fetal development.
Well, Minerva's argument was that the child doesn't have a concept of tomorrow. So if you were to kill the child, then you're not taking anything from him or her because they have no concept of tomorrow. Of course, Minerva's argument is about children who were just born, meaning fully developed 9-month-old child just delivered from her mother who's just born. Minerva says that child has no concept of tomorrow. Therefore, if you kill the child, you're taking nothing from her.
Yeah, technically that makes sense.
Well, it makes a lot of sense if you want to go by subjective criteria to define what a person is, right?
Objective.
Well, this would be subjective because your line you probably
their subjective experience.
Right. Let me read something to you because you're a science person. I don't want to tell everybody.
Sure.
I don't want to tell everybody what you do for work, but you're a science person. This isn't your field that you've said, but let me read this to you and tell me what you think of it. Human beings can be distinguished from human cells using the same kind of criteria scientists use to distinguish different cell types. A human being, i.e. a human organism, is composed of human parts, cells, proteins, RNA, DNA. Yet it is different from a mere collection of cells because it has a characteristic molecular composition and behavior of an organism. In other words, it acts as an independent and coordinated manner to carry on the activities of life. Human embryos from the one-cell zygote stage forward show uniquely integrated organismal behavior that is unlike the structure of mere human cells. The zygote produces increasingly complex tissues, structures, and organs that work together in a coordinated way. Importantly, the cells, tissues, and organs produced during development do not somehow generate the embryo, as if there were some unseen, mysterious manufacturer directing this process. They are produced by the embryo as it directs its own development to more mature stages of human life. This organized, coordinated behavior of the embryo is the defining characteristic of a human organism. So this person who's dedicated her entire life to this specific field is direct. Well, it's interesting because I would say, yes, there's an invisible manufacturer. It's God. She says, no, that's poppycock. But what she also says is it's poppycock to just say it's a collection of cells, which you hear all the time. Scientifically speaking, they're not agreeing that God is in the womb. But they're also disagreeing that it's just a collection of cells. The embryo is directing its own development, which is the number one indicator of a separate organism. This is from the single cell at the moment of conception. So
yeah, and we know because we've actually grown embryos from inception outside of a host. We've done lab growth before of various animals, so we know that that's the case. It can be independent of a host if given the proper environment.
Okay, so we're agreeing. We're talking about a human organism or a human being, whatever people want to call it.
She is too. Her paper is agreeing on that as well.
Yep. And she makes reference to thousands of independent peer-reviewed publications. And so the Planned Parenthood. So what we're talking about is. So let me ask you this question, though, Zonia. Do you subscribe to the idea that abortion would be sort of a form of mercy killing if the child is going to come into a family where he or she is not wanted or loved per se?
Depends on the situation. I've definitely known people who were raised in the situation where they weren't loved, they were abused, they didn't, have the right kind of care. I've known people who were raised without proper nutrition, and so their brains did not fully develop to the capacity that they should have been able to, and their bodies didn't fully develop the way they should have. So there are those conditions. I think we should have a better system to allow people, if safe for them, to conceive, to bring a child to term and adopt it out to a family that will care and that has the means to care. But if that is not guaranteed in every situation, I think you do have to consider the possibility that maybe abortion is the appropriate way to go. After being I would argue that.
Okay. Now,
But yeah,
on
you
what,
need to kind of give yourself the option at times.
Zonia, on what basis would you argue against late-term abortion? Like, what's the cutoff line for you?
Well, I'll be honest with you in that. I haven't put a whole heck of a lot of thought into the late-term abortion stuff, and probably I have listened to a little bit too much propaganda. If I were to take a purely analytical approach, I would probably say late-term abortion is generally okay, except that you put the mother at significant risk if you do a late-term abortion. You're also kind of setting a bad standard for how to handle these procedures. An abortion for the benefit of the mother should be done earlier, not later.
Okay.
And
Hold on for a second, Rachel Hoover, sister. I'm sorry, you're wrong. I can send you the I can send you the article again, Rachel. It's not a human clump of cell. It's a human organism that's directing its own development. That's what the embryologist, who is a PhD, says, not me. Okay.
So, but if I'm going to take a purely analytical approach, I would say late-term abortion is actually okay. However, you're putting the mother at significant risk when you do that.
Well, what are you defining though as late-term abortion? Like,
well, again, I'm not an embryologist, so I can't give all the specifics on that. But a lot of people argue that mid-third trimester is a really bad time to be doing an abortion. It's a major procedure where you're actually having to you either bring the baby to term and terminate it before it actually takes its first breath, or you take it apart before it becomes too fully developed, and you're dismantling the baby in larger pieces, and that does a lot of damage to the mother's uterus and body in general.
So you're saying if we could come up with technology to where we could do, let's say, right up to the 9th month abortions without harming the mother, you'd be okay with that?
I'd have to have more data on it. So here's the way I look at things. I don't necessarily have a problem with people expiring prematurely, right? I have problems with putting people through torment. So, even though I'm against things like the death penalty, at the same time, I'm also not a big fan of locking people up indefinitely, because I think it puts people through a lot of torment, especially in situations where you have them locked up in, Betamax prisons and such, where they don't get to see the light of day that often. I don't like the idea of putting people through torment, because there is a feedback loop in your own brain where your brain is trying to come up with these clever mechanisms for addressing a situation that is out of your control, that is basically the equivalent of torment. It's a ton of negative feedback that your brain doesn't know how to process properly. So if there's a baby that has been developed to a point where it's feeding back on its environment and it's registering the senses coming through the mother's body to it, sound, vibrations, etc., then we do have a little bit of a neurological dilemma in there.
Okay.
Do we go and start acting against that, neurologically developed entity?
Okay, so Zonia. So Zonia, that Katrina Effort story in Canada that I mentioned in the video, where right after the baby was born, she strangled to death, threw it over the fence, and went on with her day. Based on that template, would that be right or wrong?
I would say that would be wrong.
How come?
Now, I could get more analytical, and I could say, well, the baby's dead and it's over with. But from a standard of having a code to live by that a society can get along in without being at each other's throats constantly, killing your neighbor when you get tired of them and they're, whatever they're doing, that throwing their garbage over your fence or whatever, then you need to have certain lines you draw in the sand that you don't cross. So I could be totally analytical and say, well, it's not like the baby has a soul. You know, it's dead. It's exterminated. There's no more feeling. Whatever it felt before it is null and void.
Well, but Minerva would say...
Let me kind of open Pandora's box and say, well, then what is the limit?
That's a good question. That's the question I'm asking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we are saying that really, I mean, to Minerva's point, that child had just been born. It has no concept of the future, so we've done it no harm. And if I combine that with your doctrine of torment, why would we put this young lady through the torment of raising a child by herself? She obviously doesn't have access to resources. So if I combine those two, then there's no real way to say that was wrong, is there?
Nope, there isn't. And you have to create systems that allow people to have options. One of the problems that we have is we penalize a lot, but we're not very good at providing options to people. So we kind of say, well, you screwed up, so you suffer the punishment. And we don't really provide people, the means by which to avoid those things, unless you're born into privilege.
Your question, your statement goes along with what Jen said about. Jen asked the question: if you're against abortion, are you good for free birth control? I say yes. Of course, me with my socialist self, Zonia, there would be some sort of stipend that single mothers would get on top of regular public assistance if I was in charge. So everybody like me and you would get taxed 50%. and we would, I agree, better education about birth control. And we, on top of the regular public assistance a young woman would get, if she's a single mom, she would get, I don't know, $10,000 a year, Zonia. I don't know what it is. But they'd get a big chunk of cash. But that would cost the rest of us a ton of money. But I'm okay with that because I'm a socialist. Okay.
I had some socialist views myself. And I would agree to something similar, but more of a universal basic income that's padded for child support.
Right.
I think people need sort of safety nets in general. A major problem we have right now is that if you fall on hard times or lose your job and you're not in a situation where you can easily jump to another job, falling back on public assistance is actually sort of an all or nothing kind of situation.
Right. It's zero sum.
If you get on welfare, it's hard to get off of it because as soon as you start working, they take it away from you. But if you have a universal basic income, you can take your time to build skills and find a new job.
Yep. Isn't there a Asian presidential candidate that's talking about UBI? It's like $1,000 a month or something like that?
Yeah, but I hear that all of his bros are really violent and that they're sexist.
Oh, that's right. One more thing about people saying you cannot impose your morality on people. Did we impose our morality on the Nazis in World War II?
Yeah, we pretty much did. The UN is all about imposing morality. We hit countries for human rights violations all the time.
What a ridiculous, stupid thing! I'm sorry. Let me pull back. I just think it's inconsistent. The North, thankfully, now Zonia, I'm very thankful for this. The North imposed their morality on the South, right? I'm very happy. So we impose our morality on people all the time. That's why we have prisons. Yeah. Look, nobody is in prison because they want to be there. They're being held against their will because the government is imposing a certain moral code upon them. Golly. Yep. Let's just be consistent. Well, Zonia, this is nightmarish stuff that you're talking about. You basically said that Katrina Effort was okay with killing her newborn from a technical sense. But the thing is, Zonia, you're... could I say you're an engineer?
I'm an engineer, and I am involved in the sciences, but I am not a scientist myself.
But you're an engineer, so you're thinking with an engineer's mind, right? So I don't think you would. I think if you saw a little baby getting tossed over a fence, you'd drop everything that you're doing and rescue that kid.
Oh, absolutely. I'd do it for any living being, really.
But what you're talking about...
Unless it were like a wild animal in the wild, in which case I'd let nature take its course.
Right.
But we've overridden nature with the way that humans have civilized.
Huh,
so
interesting.
We need to take other things into consideration.
I agree. We've overridden nature. That's very... I agree with you. Now, Zonia, what you're talking about, though, with this nightmarish scenario, that isn't just some, thought experiment. It actually happened. Where this young lady choked her newborn to death and dispensed with him.
Yeah, I saw that.
The reason that you said it's technically okay is because you're applying your engineer's mind to the situation.
Cold logic.
Yeah, you're just being logically consistent. If you open the door for abortion of a living human being, then you have to realize that every other line is subjective. And if you leave it up to the mother, I don't know if you... Well, I quoted the judge's decision. The judge basically appealed to the fact that they had very lax abortion laws and that child birth was also traumatic to the young lady and child rearing would be traumatic to her. And so she made that decision. And so they...
Yeah, she got a really reduced sentence, right?
They commuted it. They commuted her sentence.
Oh, okay.
They commuted her sentence. So... when pro-lifers say, "Oh my God, you guys are killing," you were talking about killing babies here, and people say it's a clump of cells. No, ladies and gentlemen, we're already at the bottom of the slippery slope. All right. Hopefully,
I disagree a lot with pro-lifers just on their approach to this, to looking at it. It's sort of an all or nothing deal. I try and look at different pieces. The pros versus the cons. So I'm not going to just go directly in, my analytical direction, which is to say, well, it's okay. I'm going to look at it from a philosophical approach too, as well as to say, how do we keep society from completely going over the top and just deciding they want to kill their neighbor when they get tired of them, right? I also disagree with a lot of pro-lifers because they're inconsistent in their views oftentimes, and they're pro-death penalty.
Right, they're pro-death penalty. They're also pro-war.
Yeah.
They're also pro-let Mexican immigrants literally die of thirst at the border, right? So, I agree. Calling pro-lifers out on their inconsistency is absolutely important. It's just unfortunate for leftists because I'm not one of them. Not with the death penalty. I am against war and killing, even in cases of self-defense, actually. And I'm also I also believe that we should give Mexican people water so that they don't die of thirst at the border. I don't know if you saw that. I don't know if you saw that video where these guys were going over and people set water at the border, and then
we were shooing them away at gunpoint.
Yeah, and then you had other people kicking them over. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's unreal.
I don't understand how it is that people can do that. Well, I do understand because I've definitely read up a lot on dehumanization, and I've been a big follower of Professor Philip Zimbardo's work over the past 30 years. So I've followed a lot of that, like his whole introspection into what makes people, quote, evil is really interesting. So I do actually understand where that comes from, but it blows my mind that people just blindly allow themselves to turn into that and just to dehumanize people completely.
Zonia, how can it blow your mind? If you live in a country where we can do this to certain classes of human beings, where would you draw the line? I mean, aren't we already dehumanizing a whole class of human being? Didn't we just have that discussion?
Oh yeah.
Well,
I tried to keep my argument humanized to a point where we can look at it from a societal perspective and have a gauge on it. It's humanized. But yeah, I mean, we're really good at dehumanizing people that are different from us, and I think that is growing because we're seeing. It used to be that people on the left were sort of held up as the ones that don't dehumanize.
Right.
But now people on the left are dehumanizing people on the right.
Right. No,
So,
it's the people on the left are kind of like hippie Jesus, right? Like, hey man, you know,
yeah.
and it's gotten. I feel like the left has lost its way a little bit, and I almost tell me if I'm being too dramatic here, Zonia. But when and this following statement might be followed with a whole bunch of errors in it. When Hillary stole the election from Bernie, that was pretty much the death knell of any sort of true leftism in America. Because
certainly with any kind of relevance to the Democratic Party, I think we've had a huge revolt. There are a lot of people that are not even calling themselves Democrat now, even though they're registered as Democrat. They just don't have a place to go. So Jimmy Dore, I don't know if you follow him, but he just he had a video posted, I think yesterday or the day before, on polls that were done that show how many formerly Democrats don't identify as Democrat anymore, but they don't have a party to go to.
yeah, and you know, like we said, we were just about to convert to Democrat with Bernie,
Yeah,
and then
when they vote for Bernie.
yeah, and then he was taken from us, Zonia. Your people.
Yeah, I'm independent, though I voted Democrat in the last two elections, and I actually registered Democrat so I could get into the primary of 2016 to vote for Bernie. I'm going back out to independent again, though, no party preference, which is what I normally do.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Maybe my right-wing fellow villagers will call us up and explain to us how the police are not disproportionately killing black men in the streets. That would be great.
Yeah, and you know that swings into the death penalty topic too. That is unequally applied.
Yep. I agree. All right. Thank you very much, Zonia.
A lot of right-wingers.
Zonia of the village in the house, ladies and gentlemen.
Good talking to you.
All right. Much love.
All right, bye.
All right. I mean, there you go. There was the discussion. While Sarcast is having all of his thought experiments and not calling me, I have actual real-world situations that have been done by actual human beings on terra firma and judges and scientists. I'm not mad at you, Sarcast. It's just that I'm talking about stuff that's actually happened in the real world. So, call me up, brother. What's up, Paula? Paula Nieves, what's up? Okay, somebody was going to call me, and I hope it was JB. I'm not going to mention your name because I don't want to dox you. But JB, you called me, so if you want to call back, that would be great. All right, Elio Mike, call me up, bruv. I think call me up, Elio Mike. What's going on, Yan? Yeah, Elio Mike. He's yeah, that's my guy.
Okay. What's going on? And
I think that something's playing in the background. All right, Elio Mike. Did you get to see the latest episode of Middle America with Vin and Sori?
I did. I watched it today.
Oh, great. Hold on. The Cranberry song just got blocked. Great. Of course. I told Sori, I said it's going to get blocked. Can you tell her that the Cranberries... Oh, don't forget it because she's got to edit on this computer and I'm using it for the show. Oh, actually, I lied. It didn't get blocked. All right. That's what I get for listening to Facebook. All right. Elio Mike, talk to me. What did you think of the video? Tell me the truth. Don't soften it because we're buddies, Elio Mike.
Oh, no, I won't.
Okay.
I would never do that. You'll get it straight.
It's a tragedy, obviously. Nobody ever wants to see something like that happen. But it absolutely had nothing to do with race. It had to do with a chaotic situation with somebody with a gun holding somebody down with a gun, on the street. It's what we call blue on blue or blue on green, and these kind of things happen all the time in law enforcement. They happen in the military. When you have, like looking at the military, when you have like 2 patrol units out patrolling, and one of the most dangerous things is having these 2 patrol units meshing, or a patrol unit coming into the perimeter of a good base. Those are some of the most dangerous situations because bad things can happen and mistakes can happen. And this was absolutely a mistake. Although, we don't know what kind of information the officer had going in. We don't know what kind of description he had, possible gunman. We don't know. There's lots of unknowns at this point of like what his state of mind was coming into that scene, and those kind of things matter. And you really can't compare like that situation. I know you compared in the video to the white guy who had the red flag order put on him. You cannot compare those 2 situations. Every law enforcement situation is completely different. When you have different circumstances, different officers, different agencies, different states, you just can't compare them.
Yeah, that's what I keep hearing, Elio, Mike. The problem is that I keep seeing all these examples. Did you ever see that example in California where that guy in the? Well, I'm about to tell you. The example of a. Let me ask you this question, Mike. If there was did you see the discussion about Miami where they were using black folks as target practice?
In what way? Like you're talking about on paper targets?
Did you see that video? Well, it was in the video.
I guess I didn't go that far in. You're talking about paper targets with black people on paper targets?
Right. It was in South Miami Beach, and then in 3 months later, after that got exposed, there was a black guy in the street, and he was down with his hands in the air, and the cop shot him anyway.
Right. I'm not denying that terrible things happen, but there's multiracial paper targets. If one agency was using only black people targets, yeah, that's messed up. But there are we use paper targets of all stripes. With don't shoot targets. They're varying colors and varying clothing, and but pretty much nowadays, though, most modern departments will just use the silhouette. They don't even use actual printed, faces. And stuff.
Well, my brother, this was 2016.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not saying it was the right way to go.
Well,
I can't.
Well, hold on for a second. So
decisions can be made, but sure.
So they're using silhouetted targets of African Americans, and then they shoot an African American male while he's on the ground with his hands in the air, completely unarmed.
Okay.
Are you saying race has nothing to do with that whatsoever?
I don't know the situation, but what I'm saying is, given the exact same facts, if that was a white dude either not complying or doing or whatever caused the officer to shoot, I'm saying that he would have just as likely shot if it was a white guy.
Well, if you'd have watched the video, the man, Mr. Kinsey, turned to the police officer as he was being carted off. He said, "Why'd you shoot me?" And the cop said, "I don't know."
Okay, well, he didn't know. Right. He probably screwed up. He probably had his finger on the trigger when he shouldn't have had his finger on the trigger, and he reacted physically to something, and his gun went off. So
you're saying so you're saying it has nothing to do with race at all, even though that they had 3 months earlier they had the black targets in the exact same region, South Miami Beach.
Yeah,
so that's how they were.
I can't speak to an individual officer who might be racist. Like the one in Chicago where the cop shot the kid with a knife walking on the street, and that was covered up by Ron Emanuel for like 18 months. Yeah, that cop was straight up piece of shit. He was a straight up racist. He told his buddies he was going to shoot the guy before they even got on the scene. That was bullshit, right? Absolutely. The guy's going to jail for it. But in the vast majority of these situations, race has nothing to do with it. It's a situational thing. And they would be just as likely to shoot a white guy as a black guy, or a black guy as a white guy. Okay.
Do you have any data that would buttress the idea that he would be just as likely to shoot a white guy as a black guy?
Actually, when it comes to percentage of crimes committed, population, and white guys of the same age are roughly, 35 or 40% of the population. White males commit, generally, they're equally represented. They commit about 35 to 40% of the violent crime. Whereas that black male population of 3 or 4% commits about 50 to 60% of the violent crime.
Well, hold on for a second, because I want to talk about that too. But the question I asked you was, do you have data that demonstrates that white unarmed males are being shot at the same clip percentage-wise that black people are?
Well, it has to be. You have to put it. You can't just do raw numbers. And
you
can't do representative, population numbers.
Isn't that what you just did? Isn't that what you just?
No. What I said was percentage of violent crimes committed.
That's what I'm asking you. So what I'm asking you is the percentage of times unarmed men have been shot by race. Because you just did violent crimes committed by race, right? So just
right, because what that does is puts that population more likely to be in contact with police.
Well, yeah, If me and my white buddy are walking down the street and 8 times out of 10 I'm the one that's getting harassed by police, then I would be more in contact with police, right? I mean, we know that stop and frisk was obviously racially slanted in New York. That's unquestionable.
Because the majority of people committing crimes in those areas were black.
Yeah, isn't that circular logic though? Like, in other words, because the report.
If that's the case, you have to get into what actual, how police work happens. When you have patrol guys who do reactive policing, and then you have street crimes units that do proactive policing, and how proactive policing happens, and how these units that are specialized units that get assigned to certain areas, how that happens, and whether they're requested by the citizenry or whether they're there because of crime analysis says that there's a spike in robberies in this area, so we're gonna they have lots of words for it, but they're gonna do directed patrol, we're gonna do swarm patrols in this area because there's a spike here. Those kind of things happen in every major city. I was part of a street crimes unit, and I was assigned to certain areas because of certain spikes in crimes, or because the neighborhood said this house is a bad house and there's lots of people coming and going and it needs special attention. So this unit gets assigned there for 2 or 3 weeks. And yeah, you're going to get the people that are, when it comes to the people who are committing the crimes, the majority of the people that are committing the crimes in those areas that are being targeted, that demographic is going to be stopped more. And I'm telling you, the last thing that the people of this country want is proactive policing to be stopped. That's all that really stops.
Well, hold on for a second, because you still didn't answer my question. And if you don't have the data, that's okay, because I have it.
I mean, I could.
Let me ask you the question.
I'm telling you, unarmed white guys are being shot at the rate that they commit crime.
Let me ask you the question. I'm going to ask you again, because
yes.
Eric Garner wasn't committing any crime to warrant being killed. Neither was.
He was.
To warrant being killed is what I said.
No, of course not. But he was still resisting.
He was not. Well, first of all, they didn't put him under arrest. Did you see the video? See, this is what I'm talking about. If a police officer, and I've had these interactions with police officers, if a police officer comes to you.
I've been stopped and picked up by cops when I was a kid.
If a police officer, I'm talking about America now and our rights. If a police officer comes to you, you can tell that officer, give me my space. Let's have a conversation. This is not Stalinist Russia where we're supposed to bow immediately to the police force.
If an officer is doing illegal, what they call Terry stop, because they've got articulable suspicion to stop you because they believe a crime might be occurring, they then have the right to do a pat-down search, and you have to submit to a pat-down search. You have to put your hands on the wall. You have to submit to that pat-down search. If you resist that pat-down, it's called resisting arrest or detention. If you're being detained, criminal investigation.
Did they say he was being detained? You saw the Eric Garner video. Did they say he was being detained?
Yes, when they were stopping him for the selling of whatever the CDs or
the Lucy cigarettes.
Right.
There he was on the street being a good capitalist, and here comes the NYPD.
No, when they approached him, they had the right to detain him for their investigation.
Did they say they were
tried to resist that detention?
Did they say they were detaining him?
I don't think that. I'm going to watch the video again, but I don't know what the time frame was between when they stopped him to get out with him to identify him.
Yeah, when they choked him to the ground and he was saying, "I can't breathe," they continued to choke him until he stopped moving.
Yeah, actually, when somebody's saying they can't breathe, they can breathe.
Well, and in his particular, okay.
I know that's the truth.
So here's the disconnect, Elio, Mike. You made a statement that they would just as likely be able to shoot a white person as a black person, but you have no data to back that up.
Well, I'm going from my experience and from the trainings
Yeah.
that we get.
Mike, you're a good guy, brother. But I'm not worried about your experience because I feel safe with you. The problem is that I've got situations where a guy's selling Lucy cigarettes and ends up dead. Another guy is on the ground with his hands in the air and ends up shot. The cop has zero explanation for why that is.
And then you have the white guy shot in the hallway at that hotel in Arizona.
But Mike, I can tell you the numbers are much different. And it's interesting to me that literally I can get you 20 examples to one where that's the issue.
No, you can't.
Okay.
That different.
Okay. Well, hold on. Let me read. Can I read?
With crimes committed.
Mike, let me read a source to you. I'm going to read this because I actually have source for, because I don't agree with your idea that they'd be just as likely to shoot a white guy, percentage-wise, as they would a black guy. This is, you can look this up yourself. This is published in 2018 of May 2018. Police killings hit people of color hardest, study finds. More years of life lost among blacks, Hispanics than there are of whites.
I would agree with that.
So it's called the Journal of Epidemiology and Community Health. And this is done by Anthony Bowie and David Geffen School of Medicine at the University of California, Los Angeles. Okay, so it's not true statistically that we could make the argument that if they saw a white guy on top of the guy, that they'd be just as likely to shoot him. The numbers don't tell us that. You're telling us that. You're telling us that, but the data's not telling us that.
No, I'm not saying that they are shot more. I understand that they're shot at a rate commensurate with violent crimes.
My brother, Eric Garner wasn't committing a violent crime. Mr. Kinsey wasn't committing it.
Taking anecdotes are irrelevant.
No. I'm marrying the anecdotes with the data that I just read you.
Well, I'm just going by the actual mass data of like all the instances.
Okay, quote them.
Just as many white dudes who were killed, unarmed white guys that were shot.
We're talking about percentage here, right? And you're making the argument that these people deserve to be killed because they're violent criminals.
I'm not saying that. No. I'm not saying they deserve to be killed.
Well, it's commensurate with the violence they're committing. The problem is that these examples, along with the numbers, are showing that these people were not committing acts of violence.
It's the demographic I'm talking about.
I don't care what the demographic is. They're not committing acts of violence, and they end up dead. They end up dead, Mike. What should happen to the guy that shot Charles Kinsey?
Say that again?
The dude that shot Charles Kinsey in Miami. What should happen to him? The one that shot him when he was on the ground with his hands in the air.
What happened to the officer? I don't know. I don't know the situation.
Well, the same thing that happens all the time.
It depends on the circumstances. If the officer doesn't know why he shot, that's absolutely negligence, and it's manslaughter.
Well, what? Well, thankfully, Mr. Kinsey didn't die. And
It's an attackment assault, or it's assault with a deadly weapon. There's all kinds of. I mean, if the officer can't articulate why he fired, then that's it was obviously improper.
So let me ask you a question, Mr. The security guard that was killed, I think it was yesterday or the day before. The folks in the crowd were saying he's a security guard, and he was shot anyway.
Okay, well, what I can tell you is, okay, well, first off, we don't know what kind of information the officer was getting on while he was arriving, right? The last thing he could have got on the radio was there's some guy with a gun holding a guy down on the ground, and so that's what he was looking for when he got there. We don't know that. He could have, if he got information that there's a security guard holding the guy down, then yeah, he screwed up.
Wait, Mike.
I guarantee he doesn't know. He didn't hear anything what those people were saying.
How do you know that?
It's such a chaotic and stressful situation that I'm sure he didn't hear what those people were saying.
Okay, Mike, is it possible that you have a bias because you're part of the law enforcement community?
Absolutely. And could this individual cop be a racist dude? Absolutely.
Well, I don't see. Here's my thing. I don't believe that a lot of these individual cops are racist. Like, for example, the dude that shot Charles Kinsey who doesn't know why he shot him. I don't think it's because he's a racist. I think it's because he's been institutionalized to believe that black men are people that he should fear. I don't see any other explanation for why you'd shoot a guy lying on his back with his hands in the air, other than the fact that you've just been training at the range for 3 months, shooting at black folks, hearing stuff like this.
I'm saying white guys are shot in that same exact way.
Not at the same clip. I just provided the source to you. They're not shot at the same clip percentage-wise.
I don't think that source, that all that source said was that more black guys are shot percentage-wise than white guys. That's all that.
How is that different from what I just said? That's literally exactly what I just said.
Doesn't mean that there's any bias there.
Say again?
Just because the rates are different doesn't mean that there's any racial bias there. That doesn't go into the motivations of the shooters, of the officers at all.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. So we've got empirical data that demonstrates that there is a vast difference between who gets shot when. We have video of black folks running with no weapons, the Walter Scott case, where the officer set himself up and shot the dude in the back. Let me ask you a question. If there was a systemic racial... If there was a system, that's because there was a video of it, Mike.
The forensic evidence on the scene would have proven that guy was...
I'm sure. I'm sure, because they also were seen trying to plant a gun on Walter Scott's dead body. I mean, come on, man.
That particular cop was, yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you a question, Mike. If
his taser on him.
If there was a systemic racial issue within the police department, what would constitute proof of it? Because what I'm getting from you is anecdotal evidence that we see on video doesn't prove it. Numbers don't prove it. So what would prove that there's an actual systemic racial issue in a police department?
Okay, if 3 to 4% of the population of young, so let's just say young black men were only committing like maybe 10% of the violent crime, but yet they were still being shot at 40 to 50% of the shootings, that would demonstrate it. If they were overrepresented in the shootings, then the rate of violent crime. You know what I'm saying?
Well, no, because let me give you an example. I live in an area where I have numbers for this too, a predominantly white area, and they're not getting shot at those rates at all. And they're the only ones doing the crime. You and I both. Isn't it true that most violent criminals commit violent acts prior to their 28th birthday? Isn't that true? Most acts of violence are committed by people prior to their 28th birthday. Isn't that true?
Yeah, probably. I would agree with that.
Okay. So if I have 10 folks walking down the street and I channel my energy to a specific group of them, isn't it true that if I target them at a certain age range, isn't it true I'm more likely to find more violent people?
Sure. If you're going just strictly by age, yeah.
Right. So if I have a system, hold on, Mike. Give me a second. Mike, give me a second. If I have a system where I'm targeting a specific group of people in exclusion, did you read the Stop and Frisk Human Rights Watch report where you had white kids with cocaine that were passed up and black kids with weed that were getting harassed by police officers? Doesn't that prove that if you go after a certain group of young...
officers were getting guns off the street.
Hold on, I'm just trying to make an argument here. Doesn't that prove that if you go after a certain group of young people, you're going to find it? So that would then be confirmation bias and justify your confirmation against that group of kids?
About the way that police work is criminal profiles, not racial profiles. And if they're going after a specific crime, they're going to go after the profile that fits that crime, the criminal profile.
I don't think you understand what I don't think you understand what I'm saying.
If they wanted to pull cocaine off the street, then they would have stopped those white kids way more if they were looking to just get cocaine off the street.
Very good.
That particular stop and frisk mission was to get guns off the street.
So they went
after the guns.
Let me ask you a question. The war on drugs. Who got incarcerated the most during the war on drugs? What group of people?
Oh, absolutely. Crack dealers did, absolutely. And it was mostly black guys.
Okay.
Without a doubt.
Why weren't we targeting cocaine?
Because invariably, cocaine as a drug way less violent crime than crack did in communities.
Oh,
and that's a fact.
well.
And the black communities, the black community leaders were the ones who demanded these stiffer sentences because they saw the devastation that crack was causing in their communities.
Wait a second. Wait a second, Elio, Mike. What you're telling me is that cocaine is generally trafficked by white folks, right?
I don't know if that's actually true. It might be used by white folks more, but I don't know if it's generally trafficked by white folks.
Well, you just gave the analogy earlier. If you're going after weed, you're going to get a black guy. If you're going after cocaine, you're going to get a white guy. Isn't that what you said?
But these are users, might not be dealers.
Okay. So then the war on drugs. Do you know between weed and cocaine in the 80s, who got hit up more?
I guess I don't know the numbers on that. No.
Yeah, we went after weed with reckless abandon, even though it's not even remotely close to the destructive influence of a drug that cocaine is. So now
I would debate that severely.
You would debate that weed is worse than cocaine?
I would say it's probably on par with it.
Weed and cocaine are on par.
On the crimes that are committed, extenuating from the dealing of, or the buying of.
All right.
Probably more crime is committed because of pot being sold or bought than coke being bought or sold. Just crime in general.
Well, but don't you see what's happening? If I have a demographic of people who are trafficking in cocaine, and I don't go after those people, wouldn't that then follow that their criminal records would be much lower than the people that I am going after?
Well, yeah, but when I was
okay, stop. Just give me 2 seconds. So I have a group of people that I'm specifically targeting, and their crime rates go higher. And then I have another group who I'm specifically not targeting. Their crime rates go lower. And then you justify police violence by saying, well, that crime rate is higher than that one, and that's why they're being disproportionately killed.
That crime rate. I said that violent crime rate. Murders, rapes, and robberies.
Are you saying that there is a vast difference between a disenfranchised people and violence? If you have what you're telling me is that we have police officers who are specifically targeting certain types of drugs that we know are going to hit a certain demographic of people, and not looking at other drugs. This literally is the first time in history I've never heard anyone say that cocaine and weed are equivalent. I've never heard anyone say that cocaine and weed are equivalent. You're literally the first human being that's ever told me that.
Well, cops will tell you that all day long.
I've got a cop right next to me. Hold on. I've got a cop right next to me. He's at Camp Lejeune. Hey, are cocaine and weed like literally the same thing to you?
No, they're not.
Okay, sorry, Elio, Mike. My Camp Lejeune MP brother disagrees with you.
Well, then maybe it's not that way on a base. But I'm talking in a city when it comes to like car burglaries committed, shoplifting's committed, driving high. I mean, there's more crime is committed branching from the use of pot than it is from the use of cocaine.
All right.
Absolutely.
If you say so all the violent crimes increased in Colorado then.
I'm not talking about violent crime. Where did I say violent crime?
I'm sorry. I thought you just made a correlation between violent crime and marijuana.
I did not do that.
Robberies and all that stuff.
Crime in general. Okay, wait. The robbery, homicide, and rape thing is the rate that the young black male population is doing at a much higher percentage.
Yeah, because you put all their dads in jail for weed when you knew that it wasn't. Well, according to you, it's just as bad as cocaine. I don't know, bruh.
No, I'm talking about its reach into the community as far as the kind of crime that it causes in a community. Cocaine use or the sale of powdered cocaine causes way less of a criminal reach in a community than
because the police aren't Elio, Mike, it's because the cops aren't wreaking havoc on Mike, stop. It's because the cops are purposely not wreaking havoc on those communities and separating families like you've done in the 80s with weed.
No.
Why don't you understand that?
I'm not talking about targeting the drug. I'm not saying going after a pot user or going after a cocaine user. I'm talking about going out and finding burglaries, getting burglars that are committing burglaries, and you breaking into cars, stealing cars, sticking up stores, shoplifting stores. I'm not talking about targeting the drug. I'm talking about going after the crime. And when you find out that a person is doing it because they're trying to get pot money or because they're high or they just have, that rate is much higher with pot than it is with coke.
Okay, so we just so then wouldn't it stand to reason that we would find, and Elio, Mike and I are our friends. I mean, we're good friends.
Absolutely.
We chat back and forth. Okay, so he and I are good, but when you're good friends, you can have one of these things.
Absolutely.
Mike, based on what you just said about the byproduct of weed, shouldn't we see a rise of all those types of crimes in Colorado then?
Well, that's a whole different story when it's being sold legally.
Oh, okay. So hold on. Stop. I gotta stop. I gotta stop you there. Hold on. Let me think this through. What you just told me was, if it's legalized, then the crimes, the violent crimes that you just talked about as a byproduct of it, well, the robberies and all the other terrible societal effects, right? What you're saying is, if it's legalized and there isn't a police intermission or infringement on the populace, then those crimes are not existent, is what you're saying.
No, I'm not saying they're not existent. I guess when it's, well, I don't even know. When it's for sale at a dispensary, is it cheaper than when it's sold on the ground? I don't know how that works.
It's more expensive at the dispensary, actually.
Okay. But it's easier to get to, right?
Yeah, it's easier to get to in the hood too.
What it comes down to is when people, from my experience and from a lot of experience that people have, when the drug is really, really wanted, but it's hard to get, either it's expensive or it's only a few people have it, and the people that really want it will do anything to get it, and they commit lots and lots and lots of crimes to get the money to get that drug. Whether or not, if it's easier and they can get it at a dispensary, that means that they're not going to go break into those cars for, to get that extra
Mike,
20 or 30, 40 bucks. I don't know. I don't know how, because I don't know how the market works for legal versus illegal.
Mike,
I've been out for 15 years.
Mike, let me present something to you. Give me 2 minutes. I'm gonna present something, then you present something, then we'll go to the next caller. You have the last word as the guest. Your justification for why there's a disproportionate, it's undisputed that there's a disproportionate amount of black folks getting mowed down by police. Your justification was that we commit more violent crime. We then started talking about the war on drugs in the 80s, where you conceded that cocaine is generally a white traffic drug and weed is generally a black traffic drug. And we were...
No, I didn't consider that.
You said if we went after weed, you'd get the black kid, and we went after coke, we'd get the white kid. Didn't you say that?
Okay, that's users, not dealers.
Whatever. Didn't you say that?
What I said was, I was only specifically looking at that one. You talked about the stop and frisk thing, right? And you said that they let a lot of white kids go, and those kids had coke on them.
Well,
All I was looking at was that one instance. If that particular unit was being assigned to get coke, they would have probably stopped a lot more of those white kids.
Right. It's very convenient.
Across the country, I wouldn't necessarily say that powder cocaine across the country is.
What's interesting to me is the behaviors that white folk are generally statistically known to commit are decriminalized, or not as criminalized, or not as targeted as certain black behaviors. My only point was, if you get a group of 10 people and they're below 28 years old, you're gonna get a knife, you're going to get weed, you're going to get something. If you're looking hard enough, you will find it. And in the 80s, the black community was absolutely ravaged by crack. I agree. A whole discussion has to be had about how the hell crack entered the black community in the first place.
Sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So we put crack in the black community. Then we go after weed, and we make marijuana possession the worst thing on the planet. We go and disenfranchise an entire community of people, separate them from their families, completely destroy them.
Yes.
And
I would have to debate that marijuana is the worst thing on the planet.
No. I'm not saying. No, I know that marijuana and cocaine are apparently equivalent.
It varied state by state because it wasn't considered that way where I work.
Isn't that convenient? Where'd you work? In the 80s? Were you around a bunch of black folk in the 80s?
Late 80s, early mid 90s.
Okay. I think you're proving my point for me, and you don't realize it. But here's what I'm saying. So in the 80s, you disenfranchise a whole group of people. You separate them from their families. And then when you have a whole generation of people who react violently to that, you go, well, we're killing you at a disproportionate rate because you're more violent. Meanwhile, you just said that when you decriminalized marijuana in Colorado, it would then not carry the terrible byproducts that we saw in the 80s and 90s. And
I'd have to see the stats on whether or not these kind of property crimes are still happening to pay for pot. I don't know if they are or not. I can't answer that.
And you don't see a systemic issue here. Because all these policies that I just elucidated...
I see issues with the drug war and all that stuff, how that absolutely, what the motivations were back in the 80s and 90s on why they cranked up the sentences on crack versus the other sentences.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of...
And then Bill Clinton's 3-strike rule.
Again, that came directly out of the black leadership.
Well, hold on for a second. The black leadership has also been asking for reparations. You're not seeing Bill Clinton give reparations, okay? I don't want to hear it. What I'm saying, it's not like, come on, bro. It's not like white politicians are going, well, shit, those black people, they're asking for stuff. We got to give it to them. Please.
No.
Please. What the black community was doing was saying our community is completely trash right now because somehow mysteriously crack was introduced into our system. You got fathers getting 20-year sentences for weed, right? And what I'm saying is now we have a historical context. And now you're saying, well, I mean, you guys are just committing crimes at a higher rate, more violent crimes. When you know very well that you're looking at a certain group of people. Say again?
They still have to take responsibility for their actions. They can't just react.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
If they can't just do it, oh shit, I was because we're being treated bad.
Hey, my brother, I agree. If you're a cop and you shoot, you shoot the shooters and you don't shoot the no-shoots, right?
Absolutely.
There should be accountability for you then.
And there is.
No, there isn't. No, there isn't.
Well, it depends on circumstances.
There's been
go to jail all the time for those kind of things.
They do not go to jail all the time. What are you talking about all the time?
I can name a dozen of them in the last couple of years. But
all right.
There are defenses for if there's a bad shoot, but they can state the information that was provided to the officer and their state of mind. Yeah, there is a defense for some of those situations. People might not like the defenses, but that's the law. But these officers also are getting put in jail for these things as well.
Okay, Walter Scott. If we didn't have a video of that, they would have planted that gun on Walter Scott, and he would have concocted some story. He would have got out. You know what?
He did concoct a story, but
there was a video.
His story
Mike,
didn't fit the forensics on the scene.
It had nothing to do with the forensics. It was the video, Mike.
No, I believe that he probably would have been convicted otherwise.
Okay, you're just not thinking, bro. I disagree with you. Okay, all right. You have the last word because this is what we do in Middle America, ladies and gentlemen. We can disagree stridently, but I believe the best of Mike, and Mike believes the best of me. Mike, you believe the best of me, don't you?
Of course, absolutely, 100%.
I believe the best of you too. You have the final say, my guy.
Final say, I guess. These officers that ever get, I guess there are the occasional officer that is such a douchebag that maybe he's going out and purposely deciding to shoot somebody, and that's. But the vast majority of these situations are just chaotic, crazy situations that are happening a million miles an hour, and there's no racial bias, there's no decisions to violate this person's civil rights. This shit just happens at a million miles an hour, and sometimes there's screw ups, but I really don't think that there's a major bias that causes the vast majority of these shootings to be based on race. Whether a couple of anecdotes here and there were, absolutely, I would agree that they are.
Okay. One last thing. Are you voting for Hillary 2020?
Excuse me?
Are you voting for Hillary 2020?
I hope she fucking runs. It'd be hysterical.
All right, man. Much love to you, brother.
Either that or Creepy Joe Biden, because if he runs, that would be the absolute best.
I feel like no, I think Biden would have a better chance than Hillary in spades.
Now would you get all the videos of him feeling up kids?
Right?
Oh,
Yeah. I know. Yeah. They're just lying, and plus all the other ones that haven't been released yet that I'm sure the Republican National Committee is just sitting on.
You know, because Trump would call him Creepy Joe all day long. That's all he'd be known as.
Yeah.
Creepy Uncle Joe.
Yeah. Yeah, he's kind of like a Trump light, only not as much conviction, I guess. All right, my brother. I love you. Have a good one.
Love you too, man. Bye.
Elio Mike, ladies and gentlemen. And this is why we have Middle America. You can disagree. You can agree to disagree. You can disagree stridently. This is what we do. Okay. We got room for one more caller. One more caller before we wrap it up. Anybody wants to call, let me know. Oh, what's up, BM fan? BM fan, maybe you can call me up and talk to me about why your people went to Tucker Carlson's house, threatening him. What was that, man? Hey, Peter, how you doing, buddy? Hey, Bill, thank you very much. Well, Ron, as I said in my video, cops are people who decide to put their lives on the line for their community. And so, you know, I've got one sitting next to me, and I've got a brother who does it every single day of his life. So, they're incredible people. I just think we have I think we have an issue with the system that's above their pay grade. That's what I think. Vin, why are you so aggressive with the caller? I mean, it's an emotional issue, and I think that if you talk to Elio Mike, I don't know if Elio Mike is still in the chat, that he'd say that he did okay. He was able to say he was able to say whatever he wanted to say. I said what I wanted to say. I told him I loved him. He told me he loved me. That's how men get sometimes. I'm sure Mike could handle it. I agree. He's a cop. The other thing is that you can remain calm if you don't believe that your life is on the line. But I got a brother who's 6'3", who actually used to do security. And then I got two brown sons who could get disproportionately targeted. So you'll excuse me if this is not a mathematical equation for me. My sultry voice is being saved for the right people. Spartacus 2020. That would be a disaster for the DNC. I would have reacted like Vin by the weed equals cocaine part. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Vin, what do you think of Camacho running in 2020? I don't know much about Camacho, so I don't really have a comment. Maybe you can call in and talk. Yeah, BM fan. I saw his discussion with Jenk. President Camacho is from Idiocracy. Cthulhu 2020, no lives matter. Is Cthulhu in the chat? I'd love to talk to him. Y'all need a black Christian vegan woman. Vin, as I said, move to Norway and be safe. I know, Jan. I'm seriously considering it. I really need to move. First of all, I'd get all the legit black metal. I wouldn't be the only one in my community listening to Borknagar. And it would be great. And then I wouldn't get shot. And neither would my kids. I'd be able to send my kids out. I was going to send my son out to go get some milk. I decided against it. So, yeah. Zonia 2020, we're all clumps of cells. That would be a good one. I don't know how I'm going to title this show, but it's been a pretty good show. Do I like Borknagar? Yeah, so I have shower music, right, where I listen to stuff in the shower. And then I've got car music. So I took a 2-hour car ride this morning, whatever. And it was Borknagar. And there's this guy named Wax on YouTube that does these covers, and he did Rockstar by Post Malone excellently. It's better than the way that it's great. I encourage everybody to find it. It's such a beautiful song. Are biracial people into weed and cocaine? Right. They must be. Good Lord. Who's this? My last caller. Middle America, who's calling?
Yeah, hey there, Vin. This is Nathan of Washington. You saw my name down in the chat, probably.
Nathan of Washington. Okay, what's going on, Nathan of Washington?
So, how come no one's actually talked about Hillary in 2020 yet?
I think it's because nobody is taking it really that seriously.
And I'm going to tell them why they should, okay? She's old. The office would kill her.
So, do you really think, though, that she would actually run or really have a chance?
I think she would try to and then fail legendarily, or somehow have like a mysterious reason for pulling ahead somehow.
She'd probably assassinate all those people. That I shouldn't say that.
Last time they said she killed a few people.
Yeah. That's I shouldn't. I retract that statement. So who are you, a Democrat or a Republican?
Neither. I'm a libertarian.
You're a libertarian. Okay, so who are you going for in 2020 then? Ron Paul?
Based on Trump's current performance, I want to see more of Trump, honestly. He's a step in the right direction.
You want to see... I've never heard this before in the history of Middle America. You want to see more Trump.
All-time record low of market regulations. A very solid economy. And an absolutely hilarious, pointless controversy as the Dems just act like retards all around him. It's amazing.
Okay, all right. So you got a couple people. You got a couple people in the chat that are with you, my guy.
Cool.
A couple women too.
Always nice to have people with you.
A couple women too. Okay, so.
Really?
Yeah, Rachel. Rachel doesn't play around, man. Yeah. Rachel's with it. And Leah of the Village, she likes Trump too. Okay, so you're good with Trump. Wow, that who did you like before?
Well, I think early 20s and late teens, I would lean to in a Bernie-ish direction. Initially, I was thinking of Bernie. It was shortly after the elections that I had became more enlightened in politics. And very rapidly, too. I do that. I would go for a long time without learning anything new, but then just this quick burst of a bunch of knowledge all at once.
Is Matthew Winter really your brother?
Yes.
Wow, okay. Same mother. That explains why you like Trump. Are you a small business owner?
Does it really?
Yeah. Are you a small business owner?
No, I am not.
All right. Wow.
Why would that matter, I wonder? Why would that matter? Just curious.
Well, if you were a small business owner, then I could see why you would like Trump so much, especially as it regards deregulation and all that jazz. How do you expect to benefit from all the deregulation?
It's not about me. It's about the country.
Okay. So you think Trump would do a better job than, let's say, Ted Cruz, for example?
I want to like Cruz, both personally and politically, but I don't.
All right.
I want to.
Okay. All right. So,
I don't know if I can honestly say what I want to say about him on here. It might get me in trouble.
well, as long as it's
But I
not,
think I'll just go ahead and
go for it.
I'll go ahead and say it. Ted Cruz is a pussy.
Why is that?
Okay. I think there was a race in Florida where he just barely pulled out. His opponent almost won because of his seemingly lack of a spine. As for one thing. I think he would capitulate to his cabinet too much. He'd give in too much. That's my opinion.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Whereas Trump, he would just, he'd put his fist down and say, no way, we're doing it my way.
Oh my God, he's so amazing, right? He
Yeah.
never backs down from anything.
All right. All right.
I'm actually I'm currently an independent newscaster on BitChute, and I've been researching for that. And Trump comes up quite a bit. I've seen how basically they're trying to get in his way over everything and try to screw him.
Kind of like the Republicans did with Obama every step of the way.
Yeah, he just keeps going though. He doesn't let them get in his way. It's amazing.
All right. All right, man. Before I let you go, 1 to 10, what do you think the odds are that Hillary runs again in 2020?
What are the odds? I'm going to leave that at a 50-50.
All right. I don't think she's going to do it. I think that I don't think she can deal with another public embarrassment. So, I think Beto O'Rourke.
But they've been saying that she's going to try. Her former, or at least the family's former advisor says she's going to try.
Yeah. I shot a video on that last night.
Mm.
All right, man.
I don't always catch all your guys' notifications. Some things fall through the cracks.
Yeah, there's a conspiracy against us because we're the real alternative media, and the powers that be don't want us to. They don't want the truth out there.
Dude, we're on the internet, okay? Especially in the alt tech circle, we are the new independent news and commentary. That's why they don't like us, and that's why they want to get rid of us.
Jen G says, also, calling someone a pussy, so hypermasculine. Why'd you have to call him that?
It's what I generally say. It's the word I use to describe someone who's kind of pathetic a little bit.
Like a dude who's not really masculine. Is that what you're saying?
I mean it more like someone who just doesn't have the guts to stand his ground is what I meant.
All right. All right, man. Much love to you. Thank you for calling the show. Call in again.
See you later, Vin.
All right, man. Boy, our country. Our country. All right. Well, I think we hit everything. We hit the security guard. Who's this? Who's calling me? It's probably going to be the last call. Middle America, who am I talking to?
This is Johnny Baboon.
What's up, Johnny Baboon?
Oh, not much. I didn't even think that I'd get through, so this is actually really cool.
Here we are.
But yeah, so I got onto your channel probably about a little over a month ago.
Cool. Awesome.
And what's actually really funny about that is I want to thank you guys because I feel like you guys helped me get my faith back, if that makes sense to you.
Yep.
And pretty much I was kind of lost for a while, you know?
So what happened? Was there a song review or something? What was it like?
Oh, yeah. It was Thy Art is Murder, Holy War. But,
that's very ironic.
Yeah, I mean, I got into some pretty dark stuff and was pretty much an atheist. I mean, I didn't want to believe in God pretty much.
And then what happened?
Well, I tuned into one of your firesides, and you brought up that whole point about how these Christians were dying for Christ after witnessing him being resurrected, whereas in other religions, they had to be like forced into the religion, you know?
Yeah, that's powerful.
And I mean, like, that just really got me thinking, like, why would somebody endure that amount of suffering for a lie, and something that they know is a lie, something that they could easily say, no, I don't believe in it.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not they were making a claim of belief. They were claiming a fact that they saw, that they knew was a lie if they weren't telling the truth. And yeah, that's powerful stuff.
But I mean, it just really got me thinking, and I would say a couple of weeks ago, because I'm about to be a new dad. My wife is 9 months pregnant, about to pop any day now.
No way! Congrats, my guy.
Thank you. And but I threw a prayer out there in the ether. You know, like, I was pretty much just like, God, if you're out there, if you're listening, I don't care about me at this point, you know. Just please, if you're there, if you're listening, just give all your blessings to my daughter. Make sure that she's healthy, make sure that she has everything that she needs, and make sure that I'm able to properly stand up and lead her, you know, as a father.
Whoa. That's good, bro.
You know, and and I felt like I just heard this little voice, you know, say, like, you know, I'm not letting you go that easy either.
Yeah, that's good, man.
And shortly after that, my dad has been getting back into religion because he's a recovering addict and all that stuff. And he started bringing up, you know, a religion to me, and he really hasn't been doing that lately because I've been resisting it so much. And he just kind of came forth and laid out a lot of the things that I've been hearing from your channel, you know, and I just kind of felt like it clicked, you know.
That's crazy, dude. That's unbelievable. What's your daughter's name?
Layla.
Layla. Nice, man. Nice.
Yeah, I actually named her after the Eric Clapton song.
That's so cool, man. That's really, really cool. Man, Sori's gonna flip when she sees a replay of this for sure.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed that I don't get to talk to her too, but you know, I understand. You know, I'm witnessing my wife go through it, so.
Yeah. Well, shoot. I mean, we'll send us an email and we'll have like a little 4-way chat on video. You know, if you want to.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to do something like that.
Yeah, that is really cool. And you.
But I wanted to ask you something though.
Go for it.
So, the one thing that I really can't really grasp when it comes to Christianity and stuff is the idea that God knows what he's going to do with you before you're even born. And so, like, I kind of feel like if he knows that people or that he's going to send this person to hell, it's kind of like clipping the wings off of a bird and then throwing it off a mountain and expecting it to fly. Right.
Yeah, definitely a tough issue. I think so. There's a couple things. One is we got to define what hell actually is. Right. So that's something I've been working on because I've had a very, very, very similar set of questions. And here's my stab at what hell is. Okay. And then there's other things too. Like, for example, my perspective on the world, and I think you can prove this from the Bible, is that have you ever heard of the concept of a meta-narrative?
No, not exactly.
So just to really oversimplify it, because it's a bunch of pseudo-intellectual BS from people, but a meta-narrative is
Right.
a meta-narrative is a story where the characters in the story know they're in a story. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the characters become aware that they're part of a story. Okay, and so my perspective on history from a biblical perspective is that we are in a story, and that God. It's kind of like if Tolkien was able to write Lord of the Rings and then enter into that world as a character himself, right?
Right. So he's in a completely separate dimension and
Right.
completely outside of this world, but he can be involved in this world because he created it.
Right. Yeah, he phases it out, and then he can have like interactions with the people that he wrote, right? And he can actually have relationships and be part of their story and the narrator at the same time. Well,
Right.
So then that says, okay, if God knows everything that's going to happen, well, what's the point of creation? Well, I mean, that's to experience all the different, because from a Christian perspective, God has knowledge of everything that's happening, but he doesn't experience something until he experiences it in time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there's nothing that catches him by surprise, but we all know the difference between knowledge and experience, right? Okay, so now the question is, what's the point of everything? Well, the point of everything is God wants to relate to us in love, but I'm sure you've heard he gives everybody the freedom to choose. And here's my question. Let's say, I don't know how much earlier in the chat you were. Were you here from the beginning?
Kind of in and out. I had to go pick up my brother from work, so.
Okay. So I had a chat with somebody, and I just want to make this very clear. This particular person, if she saw this, would go and rescue the child, okay? But there is a situation in which a young lady gave birth to a child, strangled it, and then threw it over the fence, and then went about her day, right?
That's evil.
Evil, right? But then I said, well, if you believe that there are certain classes of human beings that we should be able to kill, then technically speaking, that's not necessarily wrong from a logical perspective. She said, well, yeah, that's true. So it's like this horrifying example of like, yo, we just killed this defenseless baby, right? And here's my point. The question is, when it comes to hell, here's my question. What type of society would be created if God were truly and totally absent from that society?
Oh, it'd be complete chaos.
Right? And so I think, when I think about the concept of hell, I've got two shows that pretty much in my mind sum up hell. One is The Purge. Have you seen that movie?
Yep, and I've heard you reference it a couple of times.
Right? It's like, hey, you can do anything you want without the consequence of law. And nobody goes, great, I'm going to rob Walmart to feed homeless people. Like everybody's, So one is The Purge, and then the other is The Walking Dead. And I think that's what hell basically is. It's us being some form of human. And, it's interesting because I don't know if Gorsuch Official is still in here. But we were talking about zombies in his video, and I was saying that zombies are kind of like the closest thing you can come to being a human being who loses the image of God. Right? Like the thing that makes us human, that it doesn't matter if you're an atheist. We all know intuitively that there's something different about us than other animals, right?
Yeah.
And so I would say, yeah, that's the image of God in you. And I don't care what you say you believe. Everybody believes that there's something like transcendently special about human beings. Well, let's say that was taken from you, but you were still in a human form. You say, okay, you got a zombie. Okay, so now I have a society of zombies in The Purge, and the entire society is structured around people becoming the worst possible versions of themselves forever, right? So that would be a hellish existence. That's hell.
So you don't necessarily believe in like the fire and brimstone and all that stuff?
No, I mean, look, the Bible. Somebody asked me this. Like they say, do you believe everything in the Bible? Absolutely, 100%. However, the Bible expects you to engage your mind. So, for example, when Jesus talks about hell, he uses the metaphor of fire, right? But Jesus's favorite designation of hell is outer darkness. Okay, so Is it fire or is it dark? Which one is it? Well, if you take them both literally, it makes no sense. But if you understand what he's trying to communicate by outer darkness or by fire, it's basically Jesus is saying the circumstances of living in that environment are terrible. And the metaphor that you pull from darkness or fire, whatever you want to pull from that, it's a horrible way to exist. But I do not believe that God is, and I don't think you can make a biblical case that God is setting people on fire for all eternity. That's not what's happening. I actually believe I believe that the afterlife is really just a continuation of this life. So for example, I've got a good friend here who's an engineer in the chat, and I think in the next world she's going to be an engineer on like 50 million. Like she's going to engineer some crazy thing that you see what I'm saying? Athletes in the next life are going to be athletes, etc. So what that means is I believe that human society on both sides are going to continue. Now, on the other side, if you looked at the best version of yourself, like you at your best, like, so for example, I don't know you from Adam, but I'll tell you right now, the prayer that you had for your daughter is you at the pinnacle of your best. Complete.
I mean, I was trying to be as humble as I possibly can.
Well, yeah, but complete selflessness, complete other-oriented, right? That's humanity at our best. So now here's a question. What would happen if you had a society where everybody was at their best all the time? And the only thing anybody ever cared about was the well-being of the other person. Like the desperation that you have to love and lead your daughter. What if everybody had that for you and you had that for everybody else? What type of society would be created? How would we use technology? How would we use engineering? How would we use music, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So when we talk about heaven and hell, heaven is society at its best, everybody loving everybody nonstop because we love God. And then hell is the absence of God in society at its progressive worst. Okay? So yeah. What happens, so let's go back. God knows person A. Let's call him Jimmy. God knows Jimmy. And God creates Jimmy knowing full well that Jimmy is going to hate him. And that Jimmy's going to say, God, I don't want anything to do with you. And God knows that he's going to send a whole bunch of people into his life to show Jimmy his love and all the rest of it. And Jimmy, at the end of the day, is going to say, nope, I don't want anything to do with you. And so God is not going to say, well, if you're not going to do everything that I want you to do exactly the way that I want you to do it, I'm just going to make it so that you never existed. So he's saying, he's honoring the person's autonomy. He's saying, okay, well, you can still exist. And here's the thing about hell. Here's the last thing I'll say about hell. If you read Romans 1, it says that your mind becomes so corrupted that you're no longer able to reason. Right? So it's like...
Yeah, and that's actually what I was really afraid of when I was in my really dark period, because like I couldn't tell like if I was reaching a new plateau of intelligence, and like for being able to question things in the Bible and maybe like prove things in my head somehow and all that, or if I was falling right into the devil's hands and I just couldn't see it. And so I was kind of battling with that idea all the time.
Well, it's interesting because that's actually one of the reasons I really believe the Bible. I mean, there's all these different ways people give evidence, but like the diagnosis of human nature is so crazy accurate to me that I'm like, it must have been God, because it says, professing to be wise, they became fools. And you see this, right? Like, and you were kind of feeling it in yourself where you're like, yeah, I'm so smart, I'm so advanced, blah, blah, blah. Well, we've become so advanced now that you have women writing articles about why we should kill children right after they're born. That's how smart we've become, right? And so here's my thing about hell. I am not certain that one of the things that God gives us is the ability to reason and to have a mind and to use logic. And the reason for that is that's the only way that he and us would be able to relate, right? So you were given a mind in order to try to comprehend God's incomprehensibility. And that's why you're given a mind. And that's why in the Western world, guys like Thomas Aquinas and Jonathan Edwards and Augustine, they were the most brilliant philosophers of the Western world, because they were dedicating their mind to that stuff. Well, let's say that your mind is also something that goes in the bad world, right? Well, if that's the case, even if the gates of hell were open, let's say they were wide open and you could get out, you would become so unreasonable in your hatred of God that you would choose to stay in there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, I did have a little point when I actually thought that God was extremely evil, and I even said out loud that if he was real, I wouldn't follow him because I think he's evil.
Right. And that what was happening there was that your mind was being corrupted, right? And so it's like, you think about hell and you're like, oh man, these poor people, you know, da 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 da. And it's like, these people, this is a society that they built and they've wanted all their life. Now to you, you still have your reason. So you're looking at that society and you're seeing The Purge and Walking Dead and you're going, this is terrible. But for a person who's lost the ability to reason, I'm not even sure that they're not looking at that as a heavenly state. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm going to say something really risky here. And if somebody's familiar with Norse ideology, call me up and correct me and I'll gladly apologize. But you know what Valhalla is?
Yeah, I think I remember you referencing it in a previous fireside, something like just nonstop war and drinking afterwards and meaningless sex and shit.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, you know, there's this big final day when there's this final battle, and so you go to Valhalla so that you can basically prep for that battle, and all you're doing is fighting, and then at night it's partying and drinking and all the rest of it. And it's like you're doing that for hundreds of years. Like that's the conception of heaven. Well, to us, that's hell, right? It's like you're fighting all the time. It's a constant war and meaningless sex. Great, but to them, that's heaven. You see what I'm saying? And so that's my concept of hell. My concept of hell is that everybody gets what they want. So if you want God, you'll have him. And if you want a society that is without God, you can have that too. And for a person with a rational mind still, when you look at that society that's godless and you see the destruction, you would feel pity for those folks. But if you were one of those folks, I'm not certain that you'd want to get out. And so God, why would God create that person? And I would say that God doesn't hold people hostage. So if he's not going to say, I'm going to not even give you the opportunity to experience creation and love. Because you ask any atheist, even in your hardcore moments, you had good moments in life, right?
Well, of course.
Yeah. And so anybody would say the ability to be able to love and have chocolate cake and have daughters and sons and chat rooms and all this stuff and music and metal is worth the risk. And so God's not going to deny a person the gift of existence because he knows that they're going to ultimately reject him. And so that's how I would explain it.
Well put. But so do you think that a lot of what we're seeing in society, like especially in America, would be due to the reason that people have turned from God?
Oh, yeah. I mean, 100%. And you know, I'm including the church in this, right? So what I mean by that is I talked about people who were kicking out over, you know, water jugs for Mexican immigrants. Now, I don't know how well versed you are with the Bible, but the Bible tells us actually that we need to welcome the sojourner and treat them as if they were our own flesh and blood, right? And so you've got this entire situation happening where, yes, I think we need to be intelligent in the way that we welcome these people into our home, right, into our country. But from a biblical perspective, we're doing some really terrible things. And I say we, I'm talking about the church. We're using some really terrible language about people who are not like us. And that's because we've strayed from what the Bible says we are fundamentally as human beings, which is image bearers of God, right? Conversely, with abortion, the reason that girl could strangle that little baby and throw him over the fence is because she was never told that child is in the image and likeness of God. You see what I'm saying? So whether you're a secularist or a religious person, I agree. Like the stuff that's going down in our society right now, it's nightmarishly hellish because all of us collectively, I'm not talking about individually, because obviously you and I are making different choices, but all of us collectively have decided that we've outgrown the necessity for God. Like the way that I'm describing human beings in the Western world, we're like these adolescents who are still dependent on our parents for food and shelter, but think we're smarter than them and have outgrown them, but still have to sleep in mommy's basement. That's the Western human being right now. You know, we act like we're too advanced for God, but we need God to underpin our society, but then we mock him at the same time. See what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I mean, like, you're definitely seeing it. I mean, when America had their hearts turned toward God, it seemed like we were a pretty prosperous nation. I mean, of course, we had our sins, of course, because, you know, slavery, Jim Crow, the Civil War in general, just like, you know, all that bloodshed and all that stuff that happened. But I mean, we were a prosperous nation. I mean, we're only 300 years old, and we've become the richest nation in the world.
Oh yeah, no doubt. You're absolutely right. And here's the thing about slavery and all this other stuff. We had a worldview that was already built into our society to defeat those sins. So, for example, all men are created equal, endowed with certain inalienable rights given to them by their creator.
And then those words were tainted by man.
Right. But we already had a worldview that could defeat slavery just by that alone. You see what I'm saying? So even if we had that problem, we were going to solve that problem because our country was based on those foundations. And so we had a self-correcting system to always get us back to where we needed to be. So I agree. You're 100% right. Like we've shot up to prominence in probably the quickest way in human history. And I think you're right. It's because we were focused on who made us and where we were going.
I mean, it's really crazy to think about, like, when you really step out and think of the grand scheme of things, you know, and then you just look at how, I mean, like, we're basically robots now, and we don't really know how to communicate with people because we're constantly on our phones, and we've pretty much taught ourselves to communicate solely through text and stuff, so you don't know how to talk to each other, and then when you have PC culture on top of that, and so not only do you not know how to talk to people, but now you're afraid to talk to people because you might offend somebody out in the ether.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And then the people that determine what PC actually is then get to control the narrative, which then controls everybody's ideology, right?
Exactly, and that's what really floors me when they started talking about all these laws and strengthening the government so much, because it's just like, do you not understand? The pendulum swings both ways. I mean, eventually the people you don't like are going to end up in office, and those laws are going to come and bite you in the ass. Yep.
You got it. Hey, we got to get out of here. I really enjoyed talking to you. I can't wait to show. I mean, Sori's here now. Say hi. This is my buddy.
Which buddy?
Hey, Sori.
Hey.
JB.
Hi, JB. Did you guys have a good debate?
No, we weren't debating.
Oh, you guys weren't debating? Well, somebody else said there was a good debate tonight.
Well, there are a couple of them.
I said I was in my own debate with the children downstairs.
Oh gosh, your hair is all crazy. Yeah,
No,
the four of us.
was pretty excited because I told him that I have a daughter on the way. My wife is 9 months pregnant. She's actually watching this in the other room.
How is this your first?
Yes, it is.
Is she scared?
I think she's more anxious to get the baby out than anything.
She's 9 months.
Yeah, when you hit that 9-month mark, you can't breathe good. Nothing's comfortable, and you're like, I just need to get this baby out so I can rest. Which it doesn't really go like that, but it is good to be able to get the baby out and see it, because you worry about it while it's still inside. Then when you can see it, you're like, oh, okay. Well, congratulations.
Oh, thank you. And if you guys don't mind, I'd like to email you guys a picture of her, like when we when we have her and all that.
We
good
would
stuff. And
love that. We would love that. And include in the email if it's fine to share the picture with the village or if you want it kept private, just with Vin and I.
Yeah, that'd probably be preferable, at least until I get my wife's okay on it, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, the four of us are going to talk anyway. He's going to send us an email. We're going to be able to set some time where we'll be
There you
able
go.
to chill.
Yeah. Yeah, 9 months.
For sure. I mean, I'm really looking forward to that. I'd like to break more into what we were talking about tonight and all that stuff. And, yeah, just go from there.
All right, my brother. Much love to you.
Much love, man. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Old school Vin and Sorry fireside. Bunch of discussion. We talked about Hillary.
I know, and then weed and
We
cocaine are the same thing.
Hey, that's my guy, Elio Mike.
No,
Don't make
like
fun of
somebody
him.
was telling me about this.
Somebody said it. Okay.
Yep.
A little messed up. That was my buddy Elio Mike. They said, I actually do have a law enforcement officer here. I talked to his name. Jamie, answer the question. Okay, so what we talked about Hillary. We talked about the actual scientific definition of when life begins. We talked about that with Zonia.
Mm-hmm.
We also had the Gershok
Oh, really?
official show review by Zonia.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Zonia called in and gave the
That's
official
cool.
review. And Jen had my back during the cop shooting conversation.
Oh, yeah.
And then she hated my guts during the abortion conversation.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
And yeah. So that was pretty much it.
Ooh.
And then I'll let you see.
Seems like a good show.
I'll let you see the last caller because the last caller was pretty fun. Will your cruelty never end? Okay. Well, what do we have, folks? Well, here's what we've successfully demonstrated on this fireside. One, that we can disagree with each other stridently, like me and my buddy Elio Mike. He told me he loved me at the end of the show.
That's good.
We can talk about scientific facts in a non-boring way, which was Zonia and I did.
Well, that's a feat right there. In a non-boring way. That's cool.
And
check messaging, mate.
And also, if you're a band, we have the best marketing possible. Come on, you get your song reviewed.
Yep.
You get an interview, and then you get people going to your show.
Hey.
And then they give a review. Huh?
Doesn't get any better than that. And we have the best deal.
Well, that has since changed.
Yeah. We used to.
Well, if they're a villager, then it's going to be the same. But if somebody emailed me from outside and wasn't connected to the village at all, I was like, oh, yeah, it's $500.
You did not. Shut up. You did not do such a thing. You're not capital enough for that. I am, though. Give me the email next time.
If you want, next time we can go about the boring way and stick to more scientific language.
But Gershok is leaving. Good day.
Good day.
Our email address is vinandsorry@gmail.com.
vinandsorry@gmail.com.
And our mailing address is Vin and Sorry, P.O. Box 7024, Lewiston, Maine 04243.
Sarcast, you and I are no longer friends. If I go to Vienna, I'm going to buy a hotel for $10,000 a night.
Oh my gosh.
Gorsuch, out.
Did you see Sarcast?
Vin,
I don't hate your legs because you have none. You guys are mean. You're going to hell for that.
I have hands. You catch these fiery hands.
And he's figured out a way to work those new legs. Scientific legs.
All right. Oh, Alec was here the whole time. Didn't even call me up. What a bum.
Sometimes he doesn't want to.
Yeah, I accept that. Sometimes, you know.
Maybe he's racist.
Yeah. All right. Vin out.
Sorry, out.
Gone.